को पवित्र करती हुई कानों के जरिए रूह तक पहुंचती है, तो ये सहसा लखनऊ की तारीफ में दिल कह उठता है कि लखनऊ हम पर फिदा और हम फिदाए लखनऊ, क्या है ताकत आसमां की जो छुड़ाए लखनऊ।
दवाई भी कड़ाई भी का मंत्र लिए वैक्सीनेशन की चल रही है लहर, गांव गांव शहर शहर। लेकिन जब इतना किया है सब्र, तो थोड़े और समय रखें कोरोना पर कड़ी नजर। ना छोड़ें 2 गज दूरी, सैनिटाइजेशन और मास्क की सावधान डगर। रहें इस खतरे से सचेत हर प्रहर। कोरोना को हराना है तो मास्क जरूर लगाना है।
मास्क अप इंडिया,
मास्क अप इंडिया।
The court was hearing a petition pertaining to the treatment of COVID-19 patients in the state. So let's take a look now at what's making news across the globe. In Mexico, 15 people were killed and about 70 were injured when an overpass carrying the Mexico City metro train cars, they partially collapsed onto a road, and part of the train was hanging on the tracks, in fact from the tracks, in a tangle of twisted cables, with the front ends of the 2 carriages pointing towards the ground in a V shape. The accident occurred when a section of the elevated tracks collapsed at the Olivos station. This happened at around 10 p.m. Emergency medical crews and firefighters were seen. They were combing through the wreckage, looking for the survivors. And the Mexico City mayor traveled to the scene of the accident and said that 15 people were killed and that a car was trapped under the rubble. The Mexico City subway has 12 lines and carries millions of passengers each day. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said that Washington wants to have a stable relationship with Moscow, but that will depend on the Kremlin's policies on how aggressively it decides to act. He was speaking after meeting his British counterpart in London, and Blinken repeated past statements from President Joe Biden and the previous administration saying that the U.S. did not want to escalate tensions with Russia.
Very much on Russia's actions and what course it chooses to take. President Biden's been very clear for a long time, including before he was president, that if Russia chooses to act recklessly or aggressively, we'll respond. But we're not looking to escalate. We would prefer to have a more stable, more predictable relationship.
And on North Korea, Antony Blinken said that Pyongyang needs to engage diplomatically to see if there were ways to achieve a denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
I hope that North Korea will take the opportunity to engage diplomatically and to see if there are ways to move forward toward the objective of complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. And so we'll look to see not only what North Korea says, but what it actually does in the coming days and months.
The U.S. President Joe Biden has urged wealthy Americans and corporations to pay their fair share to fund free community college and other benefits for workers. Biden added that his proposed expansion of the U.S. public education system would rebalance the economy and benefit lower-income Americans. The plan would expand America's 13 years of free public schooling at both ends, adding 2 years of preschool for 3- and 4-year-olds and 2 years of community college for those who have completed high school.
I come from the corporate capital of the world. More corporations are incorporated in the state of Delaware than all the rest of the nation combined. And I'm not anti-corporate, but it's about time they start paying their fair share. It's about making a choice.
The British Foreign Office in a statement said that Britain and Japan have agreed to deepen their trade and security cooperation. And let's now go across to a press conference being addressed by the Ministry of External Affairs.
Mr. Boris Johnson. We are therefore very happy to be here at this special briefing on this virtual summit to brief us and give us more information about it. We have with us today Shri Sandeep Chakravarti, Joint Secretary of the Europe West Division of the Ministry. I would request him to make an opening statement followed by a few questions that we have received. Over to you, Sandeep.
Thank you, Arindam. Namaskar, good evening. As Arindam mentioned, today Prime Minister Modi had a virtual summit with Mr. Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. As you know, Prime Minister Johnson had been invited as chief guest to the Republic Day in January 2021, which he could not, when he could not come due to the pandemic situation in the UK. And then again, it was proposed that he comes to India last month, end of last month, but again due to the second wave in India, his visit could not materialize. So the two leaders decided to hold a virtual summit today. I think the virtual summit, you will realize in terms of outcomes and substances, is a new milestone in our relationship and has opened a new chapter in our bilateral ties. Both our leaders had substantive discussions on the entire gamut of our ties and exchanged views on regional and global issues of mutual interest. The strong complementarities and growing convergences between the two countries in all these areas were underscored. There are so many highlights to share, but because of paucity of time, I will focus on the key ones. I request all of you to go through the joint statement, which has been put up on our website, and also I believe later on there will be a press release. The first big deliverable of the summit was the launch of the Roadmap 2030. Last year, when the two prime ministers spoken on telephone, they had agreed to make this roadmap to transform India-UK ties, and today the two leaders launched the roadmap. The implementation of the roadmap will elevate the India-UK relationship into a comprehensive strategic partnership. You can go through the roadmap again, it has been uploaded on our website, but it is a comprehensive list of actions and activities that will take place over the next few months and years. And there are 5 areas which have been identified. One is, of course, increasing people-to-people contacts, trade and economy, defense and security, climate action, and health. Its implementation will be closely monitored through an annual strategic review meeting at the foreign ministers level, and this meeting will then report the progress to the two prime ministers. Another very important, and I would say a big ticket announcement of the virtual summit was the declaration of enhanced trade partnership. The two-way trade between India and United Kingdom in 2019-20 was of the order of $15.4 billion. Although it has been rising in the recent years, the figures do not reflect the true potential of trade between the world's 5th and 6th largest economies. Moreover, we believe that Brexit has provided tremendous new opportunities for both countries. To seize them and unlock the true potential, the two leaders announced their intent to negotiate a comprehensive and balanced FTA, including consideration of an interim trade agreement for delivering early gains. The ambition, the two leaders agreed today, was to more than double the bilateral trade by 2030. As part of the confidence-building measures, they have also agreed on an early market access package. Under this, the UK will open up the fisheries sector for more Indian players, facilitate more opportunities for nurses, recognize Indian seafarer certificates, and also enter into a joint dialogue on a potential social security agreement. In return, India has agreed to UK's ask on fruits, medical devices, and mutual recognition of master's degrees, and also work towards reciprocal opening of legal services in the future. These actions are likely to generate 20 to 25,000 new direct and indirect jobs in India. The two leaders also discussed the global pandemic situation and the ongoing cooperation in the fight against it. Prime Minister Modi thanked Prime Minister Johnson for the prompt medical assistance provided by the UK in the wake of the severe second wave in India. UK, as we all know, was one of the first to respond, sending critical medical equipment like oxygen concentrators, cylinders, ventilators, amongst others. The successful vaccine partnership through the Oxford AstraZeneca SII collaboration was also discussed. They agreed to expand partnership on vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics on COVID-19 and beyond through joint research, including on nasal vaccines, and also regulatory and clinical trial cooperation. UK is India's second largest partner in research and innovation collaborations. Both sides agreed to enhance regulatory and technical cooperation on new and emerging technologies, including digital and ICT products, and work on supply chain resilience. Prime Minister Modi proposed a joint Centre of Excellence on Green Hydrogen, which was accepted by the UK side. An MOU announcing the launch of the new India-UK Global Innovation Partnership was signed at the virtual summit. This novel partnership aims to support the transfer of inclusive Indian innovations to select developing countries. Both India and UK will be co-financing it and also create a new market-driven fund which will mobilize additional resources to support Indian innovations and transfer them to third countries. India and UK also agreed to substantially strengthen the defense and security engagement, including in the maritime domain, counter-terrorism, and cyberspace. UK also has recently come up with its integrated review on security, defense, and foreign policy, which identifies India as a key partner. As part of the British tilt to Indo-Pacific, UK has announced deployment of the Carrier Strike Group in the Indo-Pacific region. India has agreed to conduct joint exercise with the CSG later this year and also launch a new maritime dialogue. Opportunities for defense co-development and co-production were also discussed. As you know, UK will be hosting the COP26 this year in Glasgow and is keen to achieve global consensus for an ambitious outcome. India and UK have agreed to closely engage at COP26 and reiterated the commitment for an ambitious climate action to achieve the goals of Paris Agreement. UK will also be hosting G7 this year and has invited India as a guest country. Last but not the least, India and UK also opened a new chapter in their cooperation on migration matters with the signing of the comprehensive MOU on migration and mobility partnership. Under the MOU, UK has agreed to create a new scheme on youth mobility. Every year, up to 3,000 young Indian professionals can avail employment opportunities in the UK for a period of 2 years without being subject to labour market test. UK has such arrangements only with select partner countries such as Australia, Canada, Japan, and South Korea. This has been offered to India for the first time. The MOU also streamlines the procedure for returns and reflects the growing confidence between the two countries on migration issues. A list of declarations and MOUs signed is available on our website. To sum up, I would say this was a very substantial summit and an important juncture and at an important juncture in our relations despite the challenges posed by pandemic. I must also say that the meeting had a lot of spontaneity and both leaders exchanged views in a very cordial manner, and Prime Minister Johnson invited Prime Minister Modi to Cornwall for the G7 meeting, subject to the condition that the pandemic situation abates, and Prime Minister said that he will take an appropriate call at the right time. So these were the highlights of today's summit, and Arindam, back to you.
Thank you for a comprehensive perspective on today's virtual summit. You actually touched upon most of the query issues, but let me go over them. I think I'll start with a general question from Elizabeth from Live Mint, who would like to know what qualitative changes would India and the UK like to bring or see in the bilateral relationship during the next decade.
Elizabeth, the two leaders agreed to elevate our strategic partnership into a comprehensive partnership. And the mechanism or the tool for doing that will be the roadmap. If you study the roadmap carefully, there are 5 pillars, and I think actions, activities, events that the two sides will organize on those 5 pillars over the next 10 years will actually transform our relationships. And I think the word transformational was used several times in today's discussion, and the integrated review of the UK, it's still towards Indo-Pacific, their Indo-Pacific approach. I think all these are are indicators that the India-UK relationships is for a new beginning. And I think I already mentioned opportunities are there in terms of Brexit and the enhanced trade partnership. And both leaders agreed that they will quickly conclude the FTA discussions. And I think if we have an FTA with the UK, again, that will be a transformational element in our relationship. So on the whole, I think today's meeting was very much focused on how we can transform the India-UK relationship.
Moving on to what you referred to as the FTA, there are some questions on that. Dipanjan from Economic Times would like to know how the India-UK trade arrangement shape up and what will be the new focus of this arrangement. Elizabeth again from Live Mint, any timelines by the two prime ministers for completing these talks? Siddhant from Eon wants to know any headway on this FTA. And Ranjit Kumar from Rakshat News would like to know if India has agreed to British proposal to allow its lawyers to practice in India.
These are very relevant questions in the light of today's meeting. Earlier in the day, the Commerce and Industry Minister and his counterpart, Secretary of State for Trade, Elizabeth Truss, signed a declaration on an enhanced trade partnership. The enhanced trade partnership has basically three elements. One is, of course, the market access part, where both sides agreed to facilitate market access for their asks, and I went into some detail in my opening remarks. Then second will be a roadmap for concluding the pre-FTA talks, and there is a deadline. They have agreed that they will conclude the pre-FTA discussions by the end of this year. Then early next year or by the middle of next year, both sides have agreed for an interim trade deal and continue the negotiations for an FTA. Now, FTAs are, I think, long drawn out discussions, but today the two leaders agreed that they will not draw it out too long, and it is in our mutual benefit to conclude the FTA at an early date. So I think it's a very, very important historic moment in our ties today with the launching of the enhanced trade partnership, and it has several elements. I don't want to get into details, but I think you will see in the coming months and in the coming months how this plays out and how the two countries start negotiating on a free trade agreement.
Moving on to the contemporary topic of vaccines, Siddhant from Eon would like to know, has UK agreed to send any vaccines to India? Sridhar from Asian Age asks whether in the light of reports about SII talking about Covishield manufactured in the UK, could you share with us whether this issue came up during the summit talks? And on Siddhant again also has a follow-up thing on the issue of the India-South Africa patent proposal at the WTO. What has been the UK stance, and will it agree with the New Delhi's stance?
Vaccine is, of course, an important area of bilateral discussion, and I think the question has always been India supplying vaccines to UK, Siddhant. But Prime Minister Johnson did mention and informed Prime Minister Modi that Serum Institute is investing in UK, and they will also be manufacturing vaccines in UK, and in particular he referred to research and collaboration on the nasal vaccines. Serum Institute is a multinational. They have presence in several countries. They manufacture vaccine in other countries. If you remember earlier, they had started work in Netherlands. So I believe they will, in similar vein, start production in other countries. And I think there is demand for such facilities. Prime Minister, one interesting sidelight is that Prime Minister Johnson actually said that the Covishield vaccines that is manufactured in UK, in Wales, actually is bottled by an Indian company from Bombay called Wockhardt. And he went into some detail in explaining what it meant and how the person was really working hard, and he named his company actually Wockhardt. So I think there was a lot of discussion on vaccines, and if you have seen the UK announcement yesterday, Serum Institute will invest in the UK. In fact, India is the second largest investor in the UK. So these investment proposals are actually part of the normal interaction between the two countries.
There was a related question to the Serum Institute with Kallur from the Hindu asking whether the authorities will look into Mr. Poonawala's allegations of threatening phone calls. But I think given the nature of this query, I don't think that's the one for you to answer, so I'll move on to defense. where Elizabeth from Live Min would like to know what were the discussions like on defense and whether there was any talk on transfer of technology and investments in India in joint ventures. Huma from Financial Express asks, did the joint defense production feature in the talks, and details, if any?
Yes, there was some discussion on co-production, co-development. UK is being a partner. UK is interested in Indian defense defense production, co-development, and I think both the leaders say that there is great deal of opportunity in working together. And I think if you pursue the the roadmap, there are elements where both countries will work on defense in the defense sector. Also, there was talk about defense in a larger frame of work in sharing information, and some agreements will also come up in the coming weeks where India and UK will work together in logistics and in training. Another point which I would like to re-emphasize is that Prime Minister Johnson explained in great detail the visit of the Carrier Strike Group and why it was coming there. And I think there again, both the UK and the Indian armed forces will work together for successful exercises in the Indo-Pacific region.
Moving on to the consular issues, Siddhant from Vion is asking about the extradition of Vijay Mallya and Nirav Modi, whether it's discussed. And Shinjo from Times Now has saying, is it true that Britain has said take back illegal immigrants and we will give you more visas for students and professionals? How do you respond?
Yes, they discussed the extradition of economic offenders, and they discussed, Prime Minister said that the economic offenders should be sent back to India at the earliest for trial. Prime Minister Johnson said that he faced some legal hurdles because of the nature of the criminal justice system in the UK, but he was aware of it, and they will do whatever possible to make sure that these people are extradited at the earliest. Sinja, I would not take your question in that way, but I would say that the mobility and migration partnership is a very comprehensive document. India never encourages illegal migration. We are against illegal migration because I think that prejudices legal migration. So the mobility and migration partnership is a comprehensive document where we will take back Indian nationals. It is our solemn duty that Indian nationals who are undocumented or are in distress abroad and are not being given nationality or residence permit have to be taken back, and I think we'll do that. So I think this agreement systematizes that, but more than that, I think it creates opportunities for legal migration, and I think that is the aspect we would like to focus, and we would be very much keen to see that the numbers that have been offered by UK are increased in the future, and large number of Indian professionals find opportunities in the UK.
And finally, on the issue of Indo-Pacific, Huma from Financial Express wants to know whether in the context of the Indo-Pacific, maritime cooperation issues were discussed. Also, any discussion on space cooperation. Siddhant from Vion asks whether there were any plans by India and UK for practical cooperation in the Indo-Pacific.
Yes, again, I would refer to the joint statement and the roadmap. And India and UK are cooperating and will cooperate more in the Indo-Pacific. As I mentioned, Prime Minister Johnson spoke about the visit of the Carrier Strike Group, and I think Indo-Pacific is the integrated review of the UK also again highlights the importance of the Indo-Pacific, and India has an Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative, and we encourage other partners and powers to get involved. So on the whole, I think Indo-Pacific is an important arena where India and other powers and countries discuss, and today it was discussed, and I think the fine elements of that cooperation are, some of them are captured in the roadmap, and the roadmap is a dynamic document. It's not that only the elements that are been decided now will be there in the future. We will be consulting with each other on a regular basis, and we will try to use it to enlarge the scope of our cooperation.
That brings us to the end of this special media briefing. I would like to thank Sandeep for a very detailed and comprehensive presentation and taking all these questions. Thank you for joining us virtually in this format. Good evening. Thank you.
So we were listening to a press briefing by Joint Secretaries in the Ministry of External Affairs, Joint Secretaries Bagchi and Chakravarti, and they were giving us a briefing on the India-UK virtual summit that took place today between the Prime Ministers of both countries. And both of them have launched a roadmap now for 2030. It's a comprehensive list. It spans 5 key areas: people-to-people, ties, trade, defense, climate action, and healthcare. They have also talked about a doubling of trade, which stands at $15.4 billion and well below potential, and to double it by 2030 in 10 years. There's going to be a comprehensive FTA, or free trade agreement, that is in the works, and work has been also put in place. Some foundations also have been laid in terms of recognizing each other's degrees. A large number of degrees have now been recognized to allow work to improve, and that will create a large number of jobs in both countries, particularly in the maritime space. Moving on then, they also talked about a global partnership, a global innovation partnership. An MOU has been signed on that. Both countries are looking to be at the frontier in terms of innovations. India, of course, is already spending a lot and investing a lot in terms of innovation, and this is one of the strengths that India has. There was defense and security cooperation that was discussed, also the COP26, which is a climate conference that's going to happen in Glasgow, as well as the G7, for which India is a guest country. The Prime Minister will be taking a call on whether to attend, depending on the situation in the country. And that, in a nutshell, was what was discussed at this comprehensive meeting today, a virtual summit between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Boris Johnson, the India-UK virtual summit. And with that, we conclude. Thank you very much for being with us. Namaskar.